When will cryptocurrencies reach mainstream adoption? It's a question I get asked all the time. In this video, I'm going to show you the path that it needs to take and how we can figure out exactly when it's going to happen, all right? Now, knowing this information is going to put you way ahead of all the other people who aren't paying attention, and it can help you make life-changing gains in this wealth transfer that's going to happen. So stay tuned. Welcome back. So today we are going to talk about the diffusion of innovation. That sounds like a pretty fancy word, and it is. Diffusion of innovation. So how does innovation, how does it reach main scale adoption? That's what we're going to talk about, because I get asked that question all the time. When is it going to reach mainstream adoption? When is it going to be safe enough for the institutions to get in? When is it going to be stable enough to not be risky anymore, right? I get these questions all the time. So we're going to talk about that diffusion of innovation. It kind of works with another word that I like to talk about, which is creative destruction, which we're not going to get into today, because creative destruction means that when something new is created, it destroys the old way, but we're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the diffusion of innovation. All right, now, just real quick, leave me questions on this video. I answer these questions on Monday's Q&A video. If I pick your question to be answered on the Q&A video, you get $10 in free Bitcoin. If it's the question of the week, you get $50 in Bitcoin, so you don't want to miss out on that. Don't leave money on the table. We're talking about investing, making money, so make sure you get that. Only rules are you have to be subscribed to the channel, and you have to reach out to me to claim that Bitcoin, because I'm definitely not going to chase you down to give it to you, all right? The diffusion of innovation. And so it goes along with something that I talk about all the time. When we talk about this brand new technology, people most times they're expecting way too much too soon, in my opinion. So everybody wants to know, why isn't the scaling problem happening? Or what about the fees? Or how come more merchants aren't taking it? Or all these things, right? It's too soon. So like with the internet had been played in the 70s and 80s. And it wasn't until 1990 that we saw the first website. So that's almost 20 years later. And then from the time the first website went live, it was another 10 years before people were actually using it kind of on a regular basis to check email, not to buy stuff yet. That took another 10 years, so almost 20 years, so almost 40 years after technology. And so it takes time. But what I always tell you is I say, ignore the price. And I know that's hard because we're speculators and we're investors and we want to make money. But investors are patient. Warren Buffett is famously quoted as saying is that markets are very efficient of moving money from the impatient to the patient. Price is a distraction. All right. They answered it themselves in that question. How do you handle with the price going down when I know it's going to be worth more? Well, if you know it's going to be worth more, then you wait, right? So the price is a distraction when we're investing into new technologies. Now, if you're trading or if you're, buying traditional stocks or whatever, then price is everything, right? Price is everything. But in new technology, we need to ignore the price and focus on two things: innovation and adoption. Innovation is things that are evolving within the technology. So the addition of privacy features, scaling it so it can transact way faster, and then specific use cases. So those are all things revolved around innovation. I'm not going to get into those on this video today, but we're going to talk mainly today about adoption. So that's the other thing, innovation and adoption. So let's talk about that. There's two things that sometimes get intertwined together, but they're actually separate. So that's adoption versus awareness. A lot of people think those are the same thing, but they're actually different. Awareness is knowing about it. Adoption is using it, right? So we all know that if we go to the gym, we'll probably lose weight. That's awareness. But how many people have adopted that and are going to the gym, right? So that kind of gives you an idea. And the awareness is important, and that's the first stage. So of course, by all means, before you can adopt, you have to be aware. So that is important. But it's the adoption that's the most important, because that's what drives the usage, right? Adoption. When people start adopting it, they start using it. That's what drives the economic engine to start building this out. And the one thing that's important to understand about adoption curves, and we'll get into this, I'll show you some charts, but with the adoption curve, it doesn't happen linearly. Linear means like in a straight line. What happens is it happens exponentially, so it goes like this, like a J curve. Twitter is a perfect example. Hopefully you guys are a lot of you guys are on Twitter. It's a great place for crypto people to hang out. We call it CT, Crypto Twitter. By the way, if you're not following me on Twitter, you should. It's the #1 Mark Moss, at #1 Mark Moss. So follow me on Twitter. I love to throw out thoughts every single day on there. In 2011, Twitter Twitter had a 92% awareness factor. You can see in this little chart here, you can see how the awareness was blowing up through the first couple of years. And by 2011, 92% of people knew what Twitter was, but yet only 11% of the people had adopted it. Right? Nobody was using it. Everybody knew about it. Twitter was very good about getting the word out. Obviously, right? 92% of the people knew about it. But what happened, the thing that held back the actual adoption of it, is that people couldn't understand or figure out why they should use it. You see, there's a screenshot of Google, and if you type in why use, in the search bar, Google actually suggests what you're typing for, and it does that based off its algorithm, what's getting searched for the most. And in this, you can see why use, and then Twitter is the top ranked term to show you, because people were trying to figure out why. It leads into a rule we're going to talk about called Rogers, and it's the Rogers factors in complexity. So the more complex things are, the more it holds back adoption. So let's talk about Rogers. A little story. Way back in 1936, he was just a farm boy. And he was out on the farm, just a kid, and it was one of the really hot, dry summers that happened, and it produced a drought. And so being on a farm in a drought back then, that means the crops weren't gonna grow. Basically, it wrecked the entire Iowa corn crop. A small group of farmers started to use a hybrid seed, a hybrid corn seed. That seed was resistant to drought, and it was able to produce 25% more yield than the average corn seed. This is the story of what happened. So young Dr. Rogers was a farm boy. He witnessed that all these crops were dying except for this new seed. It was 25% better yield because it was drought resistant. What he was able to find out is that all different populations and civilizations across the world, across different things, all kind of responded to something new like this in the same way. He said it was the relationship to the innovation itself. And so there was a blend of all these different factors, and each one of them are kind of unique to you, but what are your personal values? What's your economic status? What's your standing, your social standing, and what's your level of education? So all of these things kind of go into account to figure out how it's going to be innovated with you. And then, of course, that's extrapolated across civilizations and whatnot. Some people, depending on that blend of values there, some people are much more eager to try new things, much more eager to jump into new ideas, where other people, based off of those factors, are more standoffish and they want to wait. I put up here on the screen, you can see this chart, and you may have seen this before. This is a little bit of a different one, but you see this kind of this curve, right? It's like an upside down bell curve, and it shows, it going from the innovators to the early adopters, then the early majority, the late majority, and then finally down to the laggards. But if you notice, that's the purple line. The yellow line that goes up actually shows the adoption. So you kind of have this innovation curve, but it also, the adoption continues going up. So even though the innovation curve is going down, you see the adoption curve is going back up. It starts with just one person. It's kind of like if you've ever been, at a big meeting or whatever, and somebody gets a standing ovation, and it kind of starts with maybe the slow clap. Then maybe one person stands up and then everyone else does. So really that's kind of how adoption works as well. First is the knowledge phase. That's that awareness phase that we talked about. And that's where people are just kind of learning about it, that it's existing out there. But then we get into the persuasion phase. So this is where people start becoming convinced of the idea, the values and things like that. Then we go into the decision factor. So now it's like, am I going to use this? Am I going to commit to this? Yes or no? And then finally, once I've said, okay, I'm going to start using Twitter, well, how do I figure out? I don't know what this @ sign is. I don't know how to tag people. I don't understand why I can direct message some people and not others, etc. So that's the implementation phase. And then finally, the confirmation phase, which is now I've accepted it. Most people have accepted it, and that's kind of the way it is. Let's apply this to crypto. There's a survey that just came out. What they found out is that out of the survey, out of several thousand people, 73% of them had no idea what crypto was. Didn't even know what cryptocurrency or crypto was. Of those 73% that didn't know anything, 3% had never purchased, or only 3% had even purchased. Even though, so what is that, 27% knew about crypto, heard about crypto, only 3% had ever purchased any. And of the 3% that had purchased, half of them had spent less than $260. What's interesting though is of the people that bought, they asked them why. Why did you buy? Do you believe it's a revolution? Is it going to change the world? And they said, no, we bought it to get rich quick. They weren't buying this to use it. They weren't buying this because they were believers. The majority of the people were buying it just to make money. So what that shows us is they don't really understand the why, kind of like going back to the Twitter example. And so that's what holds back the adoption. So that's kind of where we're at right now. We're already seeing a huge increase in countries. And then this is another comment that I get quite a bit is mainly people in the United States, they don't understand the why. They don't understand why they should be using it. They don't understand that the money has a problem, the money's losing value, that our privacy is being eroded. They don't understand that our money can be taken or seized or stolen anytime, right? They don't understand that. And so to them, it doesn't have value. And that's a really good point that I want to bring up is that just because it's not valuable to you doesn't mean it's not valuable to somebody else, right? One man's trash is another man's treasure. Venezuela or Zimbabwe, they see massive value in it. As a matter of fact, they see so much value in it that they're paying a huge premium to get into it. So just because you may not see the value in it today, don't mistake the fact that other people today are finding massive value in it. And we're seeing it really get massive adoption in other countries. There are reasons it is valuable to some people. So let's go through the 6 stages of gradual acceptance real quick. First, it's like on the fringe. It's like that was Bitcoin in the early 2010, 12, 13, right? It was just the fringe. It was the drug dealers. It was the criminals were using it, right? And then, it goes into like, it's too risky, right? It's too volatile. I could lose my money. Hackers could steal it, right? All those things. But then it becomes new and kind of like hip and cool.
Aren't we cool?
And then it goes to the hot. So that's like when we get back to the bull market, it's going to be hot. Everyone's going to want to talk about it. And then eventually it kind of moves out of that into the mass stage. And that's where like the majority of people are using it. And then it gets to the always phase, which is like it or not. Hate it if you want, but it ain't going anywhere, right? And you may have heard of Metcalfe's law before. And basically it's the effect of a network. And what it means is that the more a network grows, the more valuable something becomes. So imagine if you had the only telephone in the world. So I remember it was in the probably mid 90s, I got my first mobile phone, my first cellular phone. And I was the only person I knew that had a mobile phone. And so I didn't really carry it around very much with me because I had no one to call and nobody was going to call me on it. The more people that get phones, the more valuable it becomes. When 2 or 3 of my friends had phones, it was worth more. And when 20 had them and so forth. Adoption is the same way. If you're the first person on Twitter, what good is that? 2 people, okay, but now that the whole world's on Twitter, it's worth a lot more money. And the same is going to be true with cryptocurrency. When you're the only person with Bitcoin and you can't spend it, right, it's not worth a lot. But once every single merchant, right, once every single person you know accepts it, then it's going to be worth more and more money. So that's part of the adoption curve. You have 2 big catalysts. One, Facebook coin. Now, you may have already heard about this. I'm not going to dig super deep into the news, but it may be bigger than you actually realize. Facebook is the largest network out there, right? 3 billion people globally, massive. It's the largest network of people of anything. What's interesting is years ago, Facebook had actually tried to roll out Facebook credits, and they wanted you to be able to buy credits on the system to be able to spend in the ecosystem, but it never really took off. It didn't really do that good. But now there's a new technology that makes this very possible. And so Facebook is moving really hard and fast into this. They haven't really confirmed all the rumors, but a few things we do know. They have about 50 people so far working in the blockchain project. We know that there's job applications open for about 20 more employees they're trying to fill. We know David Marcus was a former PayPal executive. He left Coinbase to go to Facebook to build out their crypto application. And so we know they're moving fast and furious. Before you open up the dirty window. We know that they tried to launch like this credit system in the past, and now cryptocurrency fills that. And what's really amazing about the potential Facebook has, they could instantly launch it to 3 billion people, and they could have their own Facebook coin. They could also bring in all the other cryptocurrencies, and they could become the largest payment provider overnight. So right now we think of money and payments like, okay, Bank of America, headquartered out, JP Morgan Chase, headquartered in New York. But all of a sudden, Facebook could become the largest payment provider almost overnight. 3 billion people could be transferring money inside of the application. So it's massively powerful. But this is what brings the adoption. This is the Metcalfe's law that we're talking about. Right now, Bitcoin's not that valuable because how many merchants is it available for? Where can I really use it? But as soon as Facebook lights it up, they have, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of businesses. Everybody instantly has access to that inside their messenger, inside their wallet. Adoption happens really, really quickly. Another catalyst that just got announced is Samsung, but on the new phone coming out on the 10, they are going to have a built-in hardware wallet. They have a massive user base, and so they're going to put a hardware wallet into everybody's hands overnight. The phones, I think, are shipping like this week. Everyone's going to start having hardware wallets in their phone. They're going to have Facebook on their phone. They're going to have a hardware wallet. They're going to have an app, and they can transact with everybody. Imagine how quickly this is going to happen. It's not linear. It doesn't happen in a straight line. It happens exponentially. So it takes a little bit, and then boom, it blows up to the moon, all right? If you're liking that, give me some thumbs up on this video because that is some good stuff. Rogers Law, Metcalfe's Law, now we're talking about Moore's Law. So all these laws, right? I know. Moore's Law says that the number of transistors on a circuit board doubles every 2 years. So what that means is basically kind of what I said, right? Things aren't linear, they're exponential. So they keep doubling. So it went from 2 to 4 to 8 to 16. Basically guarantees the rate of exchange, that it's going to continue to grow exponentially. It's not going to decrease, but grow exponentially. And it also, it's not just not the adoption that grows, but also the value or the level of technology gets better and better, right? Imagine like the first phone was really cool, but like on my first phone, it wasn't even alphanumeric, it was just digits. So all I could see was numbers, and so there was nowhere to like save like anybody's name and number in there because you couldn't even see anything, right? And so think about how now today, it's like more powerful than any computer you could have bought at the time. So not only does the technology get better and better with Moore's Law, but also the adoption happens with Moore's Law, right? That's how it works. And it's happening right now before our very eyes. These three laws combined together are just so powerful. You throw in a couple catalysts like Wall Street coming in, which we've already talked about at length, but now you throw in the Samsung S10 having a hardware wallet and the Facebook having 3 billion users instantly, and it is going to take off really quick. I think 2019 is going to be explosive. So hopefully you're not sitting on the sidelines. Hopefully you're going to be involved, you're going to take advantage of it, and that's it. That's what I got for you today. To your success. I'm out.